Are we in an AI bubble?
Is it about to burst?
All right, let's just jump right into it. You cannot escape the buzz around artificial intelligence right now. We're seeing absolutely mind-boggling investments, stock prices going through the roof, and promises that AI is going to change, well, everything. But all this hype has kicked off a massive debate. Is this a real, sustainable technological revolution we're living through, or are we just watching a classic financial bubble get bigger and bigger, about to pop? Today, we're going to unpack both sides of that argument.
To get a sense of just how big this is, you just have to follow the money. In 2024 alone, venture capitalists have dumped over $100 billion into AI companies. I mean, that is just a staggering amount of cash, all chasing the promise of this new tech.
And look, this isn't some slow and steady growth. That $100 billion figure for 2024, that's an 80% jump. 80% from just the year before. This isn't just growth, it's a full-on gold rush. And the speed of that acceleration, that's a huge part of the story.
Now you better believe when money starts moving that fast, it gets the attention of the financial world's watchdogs. The Bank of England came out with this warning, basically saying that valuations seem stretched. And right there, that's the heart of the conflict. You've got this wild optimism from investors clashing head-on with some very serious warnings from central banks.
So let's start with the skeptics. Let's dig into the argument that this is classic bubble behavior. Because when you listen to the critics, a lot of what they're saying sounds, well, pretty familiar.
What's so fascinating here is the pattern. It's a story we've seen before, right? A truly game-changing technology comes along, think railways or the internet, and it just sparks this speculative frenzy. Investors pile in, terrified of missing out, and they drive prices up to levels that just aren't sustainable. To a lot of people, the AI boom today feels exactly like the dot-com bubble of the late 90s, and we all remember how that ended.
Okay, so one of the biggest red flags for critics is this thing called circular financing. It was a huge problem back in the dot-com days. Here's how it works in simple terms. A giant company invests in a little startup. Then that startup turns around and uses that exact same money to buy products from the giant company. See the problem? It can make demand look like it's exploding, when really it's just the company's own cash coming right back to them.
And this isn't just some abstract, theoretical concern. We've got big-name investors like Jim Chanos, the guy who famously called the collapse of Enron, making this exact same claim right now. He's pointing fingers, saying some of the biggest players in AI are basically funding their own sales. And that raises some really serious questions about how real all this demand actually is.
And this all leads to the ultimate nightmare scenario for skeptics like Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short. The worry is that all these companies are spending billions and billions of dollars building the infrastructure, all the data centers, all the chips, before they even know if there's real, lasting demand from customers. It's a massive, if you build it, they will come, gamble. And if they don't come, that entire house of cards could collapse.
But hold on, that is only one side of the coin. The folks who believe in the AI boom, they argue that comparing it to past bubbles just completely misses the point. They're convinced that this time it really is different.
And here's what might be the single most important counter-argument, coming from JP Morgan. See, unlike the dot-com startups that were just burning through borrowed money, today's AI giants are funding this whole expansion with their own massive profits. This isn't a frenzy built on risky debt. It's a calculated, strategic investment being bankrolled by some of the most profitable companies the world has ever seen.
And we're moving beyond just hype and press releases. Now we're seeing actual academic research looking at what happens when companies genuinely use AI in their day-to-day operations. And what they're finding is that real, authentic AI adoption, it actually creates measurable, positive business results.
So how does it actually help? Well, one major study found two key ways. First, AI is helping companies create more environmentally friendly products and processes, which leads to more green patents. Think smarter supply chains, more efficient designs. Second, it makes companies stronger from the inside by analyzing tons of data to catch errors or even fraud. That's a huge deal for good governance. This is real-world value, not just buzzwords.
But here's a really interesting twist from that same research. The benefits are not spread out evenly. When you look at a company's environmental, social, and governance performance, or ESG, the big winners are the large, tech-heavy firms. And it makes sense, right? They're the ones with the cash, the data, and the experts to actually make AI work properly. So while this does suggest the big guys are getting bigger, it also proves that when AI is done right, it really delivers.
Okay, but we can't just talk about this in terms of stock prices and profits. This whole boom is having these huge, profound ripple effects on our society, on our planet,
And these are the kinds of costs that don't always show up on a spreadsheet.
Just look at these numbers on energy use. In 2023, data centers already sucked up over 4% of all the electricity in the US. But with the AI boom, that demand could triple in just a handful of years. Think about that. That puts an incredible strain on our power grids, and it has massive consequences for our climate goals.
And it's not just about electricity. To keep all those data centers from overheating, they use unbelievable amounts of water for cooling. Plus, all the specialized computer chips that power AI, they become obsolete really fast, which is creating a huge and growing e-waste crisis. This is the hidden environmental price tag of the AI revolution.
And then, beyond the environment, you have this whole minefield of social and ethical risks we are just starting to get our heads around. We're talking about the potential for mass misinformation and social manipulation, about biases being baked right into the algorithms, making inequality worse. And then you have huge concerns about data privacy, a legal mess with copyright lawsuits, and, of course, the big one, the very real fear of massive job losses. These aren't just side effects. They are absolutely central to the story of AI.
So where does all this leave us? We've got a pretty compelling case for a speculative bubble and an equally compelling case for a real technological revolution. And the truth, like it usually is probably somewhere in the middle.
Let's just put the two stories side by side. The bubble narrative screams about stretched valuations, those shady circular financing fears, and all those spooky similarities to the dot-com crash. But the revolution narrative fires back, saying, no, this is different. It's funded by real cash from stable giants, it creates tangible value, and it's a fundamental shift in technology.
I think this quote from JP Morgan just perfectly captures the feeling that's driving so much of this. It's FOMO, fear of missing out, on a massive scale. For so many people, from investors to entire companies, the risk of being left behind by what could be the next big thing feels way scarier than the risk of a market downturn.
So, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not a simple bubble or revolution choice. It's entirely possible that the financial side of this does see a major correction, a pop. But even if that happens, the powerful, world-changing technology at the center of it all, that's not going away. So the real challenge isn't just about predicting the stock market. It's about figuring out how we as a society are going to manage this incredible revolution that remains, with all of its amazing promise and all of its very real dangers.